I've run over 5,000 webinars over the past 11 years, and I can tell you right now, 95% of people are doing webinars completely wrong. They're wasting time and wasting money. My name is Arian. I'm the founder of Webinar. We build webinar campaigns for a living, and we're obsessed with webinars. In this video, I'm going to share with you 17 lessons that help generate over 10 million in revenue and show you how to turn webinars into one of the most profitable assets in your business. I used to spend $50,000 per week running ads to a webinar just to get people to register. And at first, it worked. We were profitable, but then ads started skyrocketing. And what was working stopped working. The same strategy that made us a lot of money started losing us a lot of money. This was back when I was working at a financial coaching company called Enriched Academy. So we made one change, just one, and that unlocked a whole new way for us to generate revenue. And honestly, it surprised all of us. Instead of pouring money into a one-time webinar for cold leads, we built out a weekly webinar calendar open to the public. It was a new topic. We delivered it each week. And that changed everything. Because even if we weren't able to convert clients on the first webinar, we could try on the second or the third or the fourth. We didn't get one chance to convert leads to clients. We had so many chances. It was amazing. And every time we ran a webinar, more people turned into clients. So the key lesson I have for you is build a system of webinars, not just one. It's one of the most valuable assets that you can build for your business. And it's probably not as time consuming as you may think, which brings me to lesson number 2. You already have the webinar content, you just don't know it yet. When we committed to running a weekly webinar, the first question that came up was like, how are we going to create brand new content every single week? And honestly, that question almost stopped us from trying. It felt overwhelming. It felt like too much work, too many moving parts. But then we realized something really simple, kind of obvious. We had the content, we had the courses, we had the blog posts, we were running live events. We had newsletters, event recordings. We had sales calls. We weren't starting from scratch. We were sitting on a gold mine of material that just needed to be repackaged for a webinar. And that is probably the same for you, right? Most of you already have the content too. It's sitting inside your business. It could be in your course. It could be in your newsletters, your podcast, your YouTube videos. You don't need to create more content. You just need to repurpose what you already have. The next lesson is a mistake I actually see a lot of businesses run into. They run a webinar and then they move on. There's no repurposing. They put all that effort and then it's gone after an hour. That is a massive missed opportunity, in my opinion, because there's so much you could do with one webinar. One webinar is a piece of gold, right? When you do it right, your webinar becomes one of the most valuable pieces of content that you could create. So Gary Vaynerchuk calls it your pillar content. It's this one amazing piece of content that fuels everything else. And your webinar is that pillar content. Gary doesn't say it, but I'm saying it, right? It could power your YouTube videos, podcast episodes, short form content, your email, your blog posts, your sales page copy, if you design it properly, which I'm going to talk about later in this video. The next lesson is all about sales. I've generated over $10 million in revenue from the webinar systems I've built. And one of the most surprising things to me is at least 40% of that $10 million in revenue came from after the webinar, not during the live webinar, not during the pitch, but in the days, weeks, and sometimes months that follow. And that tells us something very important. Most people assume if someone doesn't buy on the webinar, they're not interested at all. And that's one of the most expensive assumptions because most people don't buy right away. According to Focus Digital, consulting services have an average sales cycle of 103 days. That's 3 months. That's where your follow-up process is so important because your webinar opens the door, but it's your follow-up that closes it and gets you clients. Here's what you need to have in place for your next webinar. An email follow-up sequence, appointment setters to call people that registered for the webinar, retargeting ads to warm people back up, personal outreach works really well, DMs, texts, voice notes. And one of my favorite follow-up strategies is another webinar. Not the same exact one, choose a different topic, but just showing up consistently, providing value is one of the best strategies for your audience. And every time you do another webinar, you're going to get more sales, no doubt about it. The fortune is in the follow-up. But don't get it confused. What happens during the live webinar still matters. It matters a lot. The thing about webinars is they're really easy to do, but they're hard to do well. right? Anyone can create a Zoom link, slap together some slides, create an email and send it out, and it could work. But the difference between an average webinar and a high-performing well is the details. The details are everything. The money is in the details. And I just don't mean fancy funnels or expensive tools. I'm just talking about small tweaks that you probably think won't make a difference. But when you stack them up on top of each other, they make a huge difference and they could change everything. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you two identical webinars, and one pays attention to the details and the other one doesn't. The one that doesn't pay attention to details gets 500 registrations. The one that does gets 550. 250 for the show up rate, 330. 25 for no details, 50 for the one that details. They just put a little bit more time on the conversions, the call to actions, and then the follow-up. No details, they might have a few emails. The one that does have details, they have a full-on follow-up campaign. So the webinar that doesn't pay attention to the details ends up getting 30 sales. Not bad, but the one that does pay attention to the details, 66 sales. The revenue hides in the details. Now, the next lesson I'm going to share with you a really critical thing that impacts both registration rates and show up rates. Now, I've had over 250,000 people register for the webinars I've hosted. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's two of the most important decisions you're going to make is what topic are you going to cover and what's the headline of your webinar. I know it sounds so simple, but this is where most people get it wrong. I've been on call with founders, smart people, really passionate about what they do. And when it's time to choose a topic for the webinar, they just say what's on their mind. They're like, let's do this. It's whatever they're feeling that week. And they slap together a headline. They send it out. They hope for the best. And it kills everything. Here's what it's like. Imagine you've been training for a marathon for months. You're like in the best shape of your life. And on race day, you go to the store and you get a pair of sandals, right? And you try to run with a pair of sandals. Everyone else was wearing shoes. That's what it's like to pick a bad topic and a bad headline. You put in all this work and you just sabotage yourself from the start. So let me help you fix that. The fact is, the better the topic speaks to what your audience wants, the more of your audience will sign up for it. This is so important. Remember to choose topics your audience wants, not what you want. And the best way to figure it out, don't guess, talk to them. We use a simple survey we've refined over time, but you could call them, do a survey, do a poll. Now, once your topic is locked in, it's time to focus on the headline. Because most of the time, your audience is going to look at the headline and make a decision right then and there whether or not they want to sign up for the webinar. So here's one of my favorite headline formulas that you can use. The double desire headline. It's so simple. What you're doing is you're combining two things your audience wants into one hook. And it's modeled after one of the greatest selling books of all time, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Two desires, one line. How to win friends and influence people. So good. Beautiful. And you could do the same thing. Ask yourself, what are the two biggest desires my audience wants? What do they really want? And create one headline, right? Just use that framework, how to win friends and influence people. Now let's talk about how to make your webinars last and get long-term value from them. This one simple idea completely changed how I think about webinars. And it didn't come from me. It actually came from a client. We just wrapped up a webinar campaign and he asked me, what else can I do to get more out of this webinar? And so we talked about the usual, like you could cut it into clips, create some shorts, repurpose it for email, create some blogs, create an ebook. But then he said something that really shocked me. He said, why don't we turn this into a lead magnet and just promote it all year round? I was like, that's genius. So we took that one webinar and turned it into a video training page. And let me be honest, I can't believe I didn't think of this myself. So here's what happened next. That one client's webinar, after being turned into a video training page, has now generated 2,189 additional leads after the original live event. And it's bringing in 122 leads per week without spending any money on ads. So here's how you turn your webinar into a video training page. Number one, you get the recording of your webinar. Number two, you create a page using this format. Create a strong headline, have your video right under it, have a call to action and testimonials. It's very similar to a sales page, but it's a training page. Step number three is where it gets exciting. What you want to do is you want to leverage the content from your webinar to create emails, social media posts. Use the content from your webinar to promote the video training page. If you enjoyed that tip, make sure you like this video because the next lesson is also going to be super insightful. The fact is, there is not just one type of webinar. There's a lot of webinars, right? Most people default to the standard one presenter, slide deck, 60 minutes talking, maybe a Q&A, but that's just one option. There are dozens of creative ways to structure a webinar. And when done right, the format itself becomes a strategic advantage for you to increase registrations, to increase show up rates. When I was a vice president at Enriched Academy, a financial coaching company, we experimented constantly. We didn't just run webinars, we invented new formats, and I'm so proud of what we built. Here's some of my favorites that you can use right now. A group coaching webinar. You could bring on key team members and let the audience ask them questions. This webinar does an amazing job converting the leads that are kind of on the fence because it gives the audience an inside look into the team they're going to be working with. The second type of webinar is a client success showcase. I love this method. This is so good because the most powerful way to teach your method is to let your successful clients teach it with you, right? Forget the standard testimonial interview. Instead, bring your client on as a co-teacher, do a little bit of pre-work, pre-production, and walk through the journey that they went on together. When done well, this format can do two amazing things. Number one, it inspires your audience by showcasing the results that are actually possible, right? The social proof. But more than that, it builds belief that your process is what made those results happen. Not luck, not talent, but a repeatable system. And you're actually showing the system as you're doing the webinar, right? It gives them the confidence it will work for them. The third type of webinar is an outlook webinar. So at the financial coaching company I worked at, our annual stock market and real estate outlook webinar had the highest attendance. People loved the predictions. They loved to get our take on what's coming in the future and how to protect yourself and prepare yourself from it. So if it applies to your industry, you can run an outlook webinar, and I'm sure it can. The fourth is creating a webinar show. This one's a little bit more advanced, but really powerful. We're doing it right now with Smart Marketer, which is a digital marketing education company. It's structured like a live show, broken down into 4 fast-paced segments. Numbers don't lie. This just in, which is breaking news, action of the month, one tactical move they can make. We also share a case study, and each section can be repurposed, and the audience loves it. The first show we did, we got 100 NPS score. The second one was 93, which is insane. I've never seen that on a webinar. The fifth type of webinar is a launch webinar. If you have a course that's launching, a new program, a live event, a book, whatever it might be, use a webinar to announce it, to teach it, and to sell. It's an all-in-one experience. So to summarize it, use different webinar formats, be creative, have fun. These are such enjoyable experiences for you and for your audience. You don't need to build a brand new webinar every time. And honestly, you shouldn't. Once you've created something great, something that delivers real value and converts, bring it back. Maybe not next week, but at the right time, in the right season, for the right moment. Think of it like this. You're not just building one-off campaigns, you're building a catalog, a library of webinars that are designed to be refreshed and rerun every 6, maybe every 12 months. There's some webinars you can run monthly, like the live Q&A call, you could do it every single month. Now, to give you an example, we run a New Year goal setting webinar for all of our clients. One of our clients, a sales coach, they brought in $76,000 in revenue from that one webinar, no ad spend. And guess what? We're going to do it again next year. Of course, why would we not? And we just refresh the content, change it up a little bit, and that's it. So that's a shift. You're not just creating one and done webinars, you're building assets, ones that stack up over time. Work towards creating a catalog webinars. This will be such a great asset for your business. Next, let's talk about what most business owners care about: customer acquisition cost. Let's say you spend $1,000 on ads and get 100 leads. Out of those 100 leads, 10 people buy. So your customer acquisition cost is $100. But let's add a webinar to that equation. So imagine you invite all those leads to attend a webinar a week after your campaign. 30 people show up and just 3 more people buy. Now you've got 13 customers, that same $1,000 ad spend. But what you've done is you've lowered your customer acquisition cost to $77 instead of $100. That's a 23% decrease by adding one webinar. Imagine if you added another one. Or another one. So if you're serious about improving your customer acquisition costs, you don't need better ad campaigns. You need to nurture the leads you already have. A webinar system will improve your customer acquisition costs across every marketing campaign you're running. All right, let's keep going. The next lesson, we're going to take a step further. So let me tell you something wild. One of my clients doubled their webinar campaign ROI by doing this one thing. They picked up the phone. Right? They called everyone who registered for their webinar, not to pitch, not to pressure, just to connect. Like, hey, I saw you register for the webinar. What were you hoping to get out of the webinar? And just have a conversation. And the results blew me away. Show up rates skyrocketed and call bookings doubled. So lesson number 12, call everyone that registers for your webinar. But here's the thing. You or your team can't call anyone if you don't have their phone number. Always ask for the phone number on your webinar registration form. At the very least, make it optional. Like, to me, an email address is like owning silver, but to get someone's phone number, that's like gold for your business. That is so valuable. Now, the next lesson is a question I get all the time. Which platform should I host a webinar on? I've used everything: Zoom, GoToWebinar, Webinar Jam, Restream, EverWebinar, Microsoft Teams. You name it, I've tried them. And some of them were way better than the others, like beautiful interfaces, beautiful features, AI-powered tools. But here's the problem with those types of webinar platforms. People didn't trust them. I remember one webinar where we switched over to a newer platform. We thought it'd be amazing, boost performance. It had all these unique automation tools. Everything looked great on paper. But the minute people clicked the link to join the webinar and hit this download screen, I remember the numbers coming in for the show up rates were horrible. Like, I mean, they were awful. And I reached out to the support team and we started getting messages like, hey, is this the right link? Do I need to install something? Well, what is this platform? And people didn't show up. The whole campaign was a flop, all because of one detail. The platform felt unfamiliar. Choose a platform that feels familiar and safe. And here's what I've learned the hard way. Trust beats features. Every time. That's why, in my opinion, Zoom still wins. Not because it's flashy, because it's not. It's missing a lot of features. But people are so familiar with it. Let me show you another tiny detail that could dramatically improve your show-up rates. When I worked at a financial coaching company, we would run the same webinar every 6 months for years. The topic was how to find a great financial advisor. It was a great topic. It was proven. It was solid. We would run it like every 6 months and we'd get 20 to 30 book calls every time we ran it. But we decided to change something. We decided to try something. So we added one thing. It was a simple bonus. We called it a financial advisor interrogation kit. So it was basically a list of questions to ask your advisor on how to find a great financial advisor. We didn't change the actual webinar. We didn't change the topic, nothing. But what happened next surprised everyone. The registrations shot up by 134%. Show-up rates increased by 40%. The same exact content, the same webinar, just adding a bonus for attending. Create a tangible takeaway. Just one bonus, one checklist, one tool. That's how you get people to not just register, but to show up. Now, you may be thinking, am I giving away too much for free? This is a real fear that a lot of my clients bring up, right? If I give away too much, will people stop buying? Like, can't they just do it on their own? And I get it. You don't want to attract freebie seekers. You don't want to undervalue what you sell, but here's the truth. If you study some of the most respected companies in the world, like Bain, McKinsey, HubSpot, Salesforce, they've been giving away valuable content for decades, forever. They publish research reports, they write detailed articles, they share their frameworks, they run webinars, not because they're giving it all away, but because teaching builds trust and they understand that. And at the end of the day, you're in the trust business. If you're a coach or a consultant, you are in the trust business. The more your audience trusts you, the more likely they are to buy from you. And when you educate your audience, you're not giving away the secrets. You're actually showing people what it's like to work with you. And honestly, the best thing that can happen is your audience gets results from the free advice you give them. Because let's say they watch a webinar, you share a tool, a resource, they take it, they apply it, their life improves. They're now associating you with success. They're thinking, this person already helped me out. I trust them. What they're doing works. So when they're ready to take that next step, you're the first person they think of. And guess what? Humans, we love growth. We're never satisfied. So we're always going to be improving. And is that person going to go with someone else? Or you, where you've already proven that you can help them? This is the foundation of educational marketing, and it's not new. This has been around for over 100 years, and it works. Use the timeless principle of educational marketing to grow your business. Here's a webinar law that you need to know. The biggest drop-off in any webinar happens in the first 5 minutes. I've seen it play out in real time all the time. People show up, they're curious, they're ready, they want to know what's going to be worth their time, and then they start leaving one by one. Just because your audience showed up doesn't mean they're going to stay, right? Your audience is scanning consciously or subconsciously whether or not this is worth staying. Like, they're like, should I trust this? What's in it for me? Is this worth staying? And if you don't answer those questions in like the first couple minutes, you've lost them. That's why I created a simple framework called the S.T.A.Y framework. So the S stands for spark interaction. Start with interaction, ask a question, run a poll, show your audience that this is live. If you're going to do it live, prove that it's live. The moment that they participate, they shift from passive to present, and present people stay, right? They do stay. All right. The T stands for transformation. Tell them the transformation they're going to experience for being there. Every attendee wants to become someone better, more skilled, more successful. So set the promise, spell out the transformation. I use this simple webinar slide that the title is What You Will Get. And it just shares 3 to 4 major transformations that the audience will experience from the webinar. Okay, the next is A, which is anticipate. This is where you want to build curiosity, create some tension, create open loops, right? An open loop is where you kind of share a promise, but you don't reveal it. You want to get them curious. You want to kind of get that excitement going so that they stay for the whole webinar. Okay, and then the Y in the framework is your credibility, right? You need to answer the questions of why should I listen to you? And this is where you got to show off a little, showcase your results, who you are, your publications, the clients that you've worked with. And you really got to answer that question, why should I listen to you? Win the first 5 minutes and you earn the right to keep them. But if you want them to stay all the way through, the next lesson is one of the most powerful ways to make that happen. So your audience showed up. You've earned the first 5 minutes. Now you've got one job. Keep them engaged, right? Here's where most webinars fall apart. They become this one-way communication, like a monologue, slide after slide, zero interaction, right? I'm sure you've experienced this. And when that happens, people check out, because the best learning doesn't happen when someone talks at you. It happens when you're part of the conversation, when you're asked to respond, reflect, and react. So use engagement as part of your teaching. Take advantage of the polls, the chat prompts, the quick feedback, do quizzes, even small check-ins like, give me a yes if that made sense to you. And when you do it right, you're not just delivering information, you're creating a better learning experience for your audience. Next up is one of my biggest webinar lessons. Back when we ran ads to webinars, we tracked everything, clicks, leads, conversions. We knew exactly where people were coming from, but then we stopped running ads. And then we started hosting these weekly live webinars without any paid traffic. And that's when something really weird started happening. Every single week, new people would register, people we'd never emailed, people not on our list. I remember looking at our CRM, we're like, who is this person? Where did they come from? And we had no idea. But then we found out people were sharing the webinars. They were forwarding the link to friends, teammates, clients. We had zero, we weren't even asking people, right, to do that. We didn't even know. Coming from the world of paid traffic, getting these free leads honestly felt illegal. And the craziest part was they actually converted so much better than the cold audience, way better. And again, we weren't spending any money on ads. We were just gaining high quality leads every single week. And that brings me to that lesson. Make your webinar so valuable, people want to share it. And to add fuel to the fire, you can ask your audience to share your webinar. An easy way to do that, just add this to your emails. P.S. If you enjoyed that webinar, share it with a friend or a family. If you know someone that would benefit from this training, forward it to them, right? We started doing it and it just added so much fuel to the fire. But the ask should never carry the weight. The value should. Because when your webinar is genuinely useful, like actually good, not pretty good, but actually good, it doesn't just attract leads, it turns your audience into your marketing team. Word of mouth is still the best form of marketing, and that's how you take advantage of it.